Hi, this is hopefully a informative video. This is going to be how to service a 2 litre Ford Focus 2014 model. It's a 2 litre Duratec engine, and we're going to cover everything from removing the oil to removing the oil filter and changing the air filter as well, and what's involved, and in particular the tools involved. So here's just a visual of the vehicle we're going to be doing it on, just in case you're not too clued up on what's a Mark 1, Mark 2. And right, cover some of the tools that we're going to need. I've used a set of car ramps to check the weight limitations on any car ramps or any jacks that you use. You can use jacks, just make sure you get a decent mount point. I've just decided to use car ramps because that's what I have. In terms of the tools, okay, so I'll zoom out there. To start with, just got a bit of a base mat, just helpful for climbing underneath the car. Not a necessity, but you know, helps for your comfort basically. Oil, 530 A5 stop start Castrol Magnatec oil. We're going to need 5.5 litres of that. I found it comes in 4 litre tubs, which is quite frustrating, so you probably need to buy 2. Set of gloves. Again, not a necessity, but I find it useful, keeps your hands clean, stops them slipping. And then onto the more important tools. I've got a ratchet driver with a T30 torque bit. This is going to be used for undoing the engine cover underneath the vehicle. Flathead jeweler screwdriver, useful for some of the switches within the engine bay. We'll come on to that later, but you may find that this is useful to you. Probably not a necessity, but I certainly found it more useful to be able to use this. Flathead screwdriver, again, just helpful undoing some switches, and you know, getting the access to do that. We have a ratchet spanner, and we have a 7mm hex head for undoing 2 bolts on the engine cover underneath the vehicle, and also the airbox bolts. Extender bar, more so for removing the airbox, because some of the bolts down the back you won't be able to reach if you just have the spanner and the socket, so you'll need an extender bar for that. This is a 3/8 driver, by the way. And coming across here we have a 21mm socket on a 1/4 inch driver. I use this for removing the sump plug and doing back up again. Then further over, this is an important tool that you will need. This is a 27mm oil filter wrench. You can get these on eBay. I paid about £12 for it. I would say it's probably a bit of a must for doing this job because of the access limitations within the engine bay. A 1/2 inch ratchet driver. This is just really to use on the top here, help you turn the oil filter off. An extender bar, but that's really very optional. And that's our tool set. Oh, one last thing. Sounds very, very simple. Just get yourself a plastic tub, put any nuts and bolts in that we undo so we don't lose them, and we'll get on to servicing the vehicle. Okay, so we're underneath the vehicle. This is the engine guard here. Got 1 bolt done up at the moment. But essentially this is your guide to where to undo and redo. So the bolt. On these front edges we have a torque drive. Can't tell you what. Can't tell you quite what size that is, but you know, just take a guess, try it, make sure you get a good fit. And then this one is going to go just up in this top corner. This is the reassembly, so to undo this, just the reverse. As mentioned in my previous clip, you'll have 4. So front left, and in the middle you have 2, and over on the far side we'll have another one just there. Coming back slightly, this is on the left hand side of the vehicle. This is where our 7mm nut will go. There is a corresponding one on the other side of the vehicle, all the way over here, and then further back, pinning the back in, we have 1, 2, and then 3. And you'll notice this bit here, there's another guard that drops down. The front engine guard sits underneath, so this bottom bit, first of all you have to slide it in, and what you should be aware of is this recess which I mentioned sits, just hooks in to the a point on the wishbone, I think it is. It looks like part of the wishbone, or certainly one of there's a little latch for it to sit onto, and there's the same on the other side. So once that's slid in position, then you can start doing everything up. But these ones here just ensure that this secondary cover goes over the top, and then we'll use a torque screw to pin those both in. Go all the way around. It's as simple as that. Okay, for the second part, we need to remove the oil filter, which actually took quite some finding on this. Not in the usual place, underneath, near the sump plug, which is where you normally expect to find it. So on the Ford Kugas, the oil filter is a bit of a pain to get to. So first of all, what we need to do is remove the filler tube. This pulls out by, there's a little catch just here. So you pinch that forwards, lift it up, and then out the way. Second thing we need to remove is this little plug here. Again, it's just a little lift catch on it. Pull that out, move that out of the way. You'll also notice just down here, the wire clips in. That will, with a bit of a wiggle, pull itself out, and then we can pull that to the side. Now the oil filter is rather hidden away just down here underneath, so you can see where my finger's going. It's just in there. So if I come out, you'll see it's further down there. If I actually kind of put that down there, gives you a better idea as to whereabouts within the engine the oil filter sits. So to then remove that, you're going to need a special tool. eBay, £12. I can put a link into the comments as to how much where you can find it, but that is quite simply 12 quid. If you don't have that, you'll probably find this quite tricky, because looking at that, there is not a lot of room in there to get your hands or even a torque wrench in there. That's essentially the filter there. So I'm going to undo that now. Funny, a little bit painstaking to undo this oil filter with this plug still in place, so I've decided to undo it. To undo it, at the top here, we just need to lift the catch on this side, and the easiest way I found to do that, get a flathead screwdriver, come in from underneath the back there, position it through, we can see here. A bit hard to show you with one hand on the camera. But essentially we just lift the catch and then slide the clip forwards. With that done, we can then remove the plug, pull the cable a tiny bit further out of the way. It just gives us a little bit more room for manoeuvre down here, so we can come at it a little bit more and get a better turn on it. So it takes quite a few turns with the wrench to get it loose enough to remove by hand. Once you can, you need to get your hand down in there, give it a couple of turns, anti-clockwise obviously, and then you'll see, hopefully, it will start to loosen. I'll zoom in on that a little bit. And then we just need to remove that. Once loosening that, you'll notice down here a little bit more oil will drain out. So I'll give that a second to drain. It's now drained out a little bit more, so we shall remove it. I just want to lift the lid off. A bit tricky, there's not a lot of space. Just need to manoeuvre that through the little gap. It will come out, it just needs a bit of manoeuvring about. There we go. So that's your oil filter cap. I'll stick that just up there. And then there we have the oil filter. So I'm just going to want to again lift that out, manoeuvre it out. I'm going to use a bit of rag because, as you can see, even taking the oil filler cap out, or filter cap, it's dripped a bit of oil there. So if you're fussy, you might just want to get a rag to pull that out with. So I'm going to do that now, and then we'll reassemble. There we are. We have one used oil filter we're going to remove. Looks pretty uniform. You've got a crosshair bit in the middle, but that looks equal distance either side. So putting the new one back in, we should be pretty much good either way around. We will check it, but it should fit either way. And then we have the location of the oil filter. One thing to be aware of, on the oil filler cap, we do have a little rubber seal just around that. Sorry, oil filter cap. Keep saying filler, it's a filter. Check the box, but chances are we'll just reuse that seal. Very much doubt that's going to make a lot of difference if we replace that. Okay, so this is my new oil filter. It's a Crossland oil filter from Euro Car Parts. Any filter you want, really, as long as it's the right model. Various different brands, different qualities, I guess, but this looks pretty, you know, it's a paper filter, it's nothing spectacular. And what we have found is a rubber seal for our filter cap, so we will replace that. So first thing I'm going to do, take a new filter, I'm going to position it back down there. Just try not to damage the filter as you're putting it in, because obviously it's going to need to do its job. what you will notice when you go down there, it needs to sit centrally, but it sits on kind of a bit of a spring. So just get that fitted nice and centrally. There we go, that's our new oil filter in place. And then if we take this, put that in the old box so we can get rid of that. Right, and this one here, need to peel that off, throw that away. A new one, it's going to go back on. So you just want to get this around the edge, get it hooked on one side, then just slowly position it on, and we'll work its way. We'll just work it down. Okay, so I've got that hooked on, and we're just going to position it all the way around, try not to get any dirt in there. Just run it around with your finger, and then that should sit nicely around the bottom here. There's a little groove in there, hopefully you can see that. You should see sits nice and smooth in there. Again, just try and make sure there's no dirt in there, so if you've got a rag, just give it a little wipe round with a rag. Bit there. There we go. So that is now ready to go back on. So reverse of what we've just done. Put that all the way back in. A bit of fine positioning to get that in. Okay, and then once it's ready, it'll drops into place, and then we are going to just make sure it seats correctly before you start turning it, otherwise you'll cross thread it, which you really don't want to do. Hand tighten it clockwise until it's hand tight. This does need just a gentle push down, because there is a spring inside underneath the filter, so just needs a gentle sort of push, nothing drastic. There we are. There we go. Again, need two hands. Also need to give it a quick clean just to get it that last little tighten. And then what I'm going to do is just torque it up with this wrench tool again. Okay, so you might be able to see the filter is just sitting just a little bit proud. We can see there's just a little bit of a gap. Can't hand tighten it anymore. It's a bit slippery with a bit of the oil residue on it. So what we're going to do, if I refocus, there we go. We'll take our wrench tool again. This is 27mm, by the way. And we're going to stick that down. And this time we are going to turn it clockwise. Everything is tightened back up there. So now we need to reconnect our plugs. So first plug over here. Just going to slide that one on. Give you a little tip, because I found it a little bit tricky to get it back on with the limited access space to grab the other side. I've got a tiny jeweler's screwdriver, flathead, to help get this back on. What I've done is I've just placed it in the top here. So just very gently lift the lever at the far end there, and lift it over basically the catch, and then slide it forwards, and then you'll hear it click. So that one is back on. So that's all done and dusted. Just give it, gentle little tug and wiggle just to make sure it's no innuendos. Just give it a little wiggle to make sure it's not loose, and then we want to reattach our other plug, which is this one here and that plug. So again, much easier this one. Slide it on, slide it forwards. There we go, that's our click, that's in place. And then just reattach this into the bracket there. So that's all done. Last bit, oil filler. Little lever on the back there. Probably don't need to do that, but just lift it up. Lift it up, drop it into place there. Gentle push down, again click, everything's locked into place. So that is the oil filter changed. Then what we need to do, come back underneath. Now we're all done under here. What we are going to do is take our sump plug and put that back in, tighten it all up. Get it seated. There we go. And turning it clockwise. I'm going to just tighten it up. I always tighten by hand first because it's a lot easier to do. Okay. And then when we are done, I'm going to take a 21mm socket. I'm going to give it a quarter turn. Just tighten it up. Gentle bit of leverage. You want to make sure it's tight enough that it's not going to work itself loose or leak. Don't over tighten it, otherwise you'll never get the thing off again. And that is our oil all done. So next bit, we're going to change the air filter, which is back in the engine bay. To the job, we're going to put the underneath engine guard on. So the bottom goes on the bottom that we can see just down here will go on the left hand side of the vehicle, and obviously this bit will go on the right hand side. This section here goes towards the middle back underneath. What you will notice, come in just a little bit closer here, we have a slightly recessed bit there and a matching one down here. These slide into some grooves underneath, and in terms of the bolt positions, this will be the reverse of what we've done to undo it. We have the 7mm bolts, one on the right hand side and one will be on the left hand side down the bottom here. 3 down the back, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 down the front. 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, and then 1 all the way down here. So we'll get underneath and we'll put that into position. The air filter. So this is our new air filter. Pretty big, as you can see. This bit obviously goes in engine side. That's the outside. In terms of where it sits within the engine, we are, if I come here, over on the right hand side, it's this box here, which just sits just in front of the battery box there. And just out of interest, that's probably your fuse box there. So, to undo this box, we have got 7mm bolt heads. One on the bottom left, bottom right, just behind the frame of the car, back right, somewhere. Here we go, just down there, and then top left, just there. So we're going to undo all of those. Make sure you don't drop them because you'll have a mission finding them. And then what we're going to do is we're going to swap out the old air filter for the new one. Right, once you have all these bolts undone, I'll remove this one just to make sure I don't drop it. The others are still in place, so you just need to be careful when you remove it. We want to lift this bracket up, try and lift it off as square as possible. Yep, sit up there for a moment. Here's our air filter, full of crap. So we're going to remove that. Yep, comes out nice and easy. Just lift this far end, move that out of place. Yeah, it's quite dirty as you can see. So always change your air filters when you service your car, because your engine can't breathe properly otherwise, and it'll perform like crap. Right, any dirt that you can see in this little box down here, like this leaf, just remove that. And then we're going to stick the new one in. So I'm going to take this open end down here, and we want to put it in. And what we need to do is we need to get it sitting in, just sitting around this little lip on all sides, and the outer edge should sit within this groove running around the base. And you can see obviously on the lid as well, there'll be a little groove in there. So we just need to make sure that this outer edge sits in that groove, the front bit sits in this groove, and then it's positioned nicely and we won't have any air leaks. Okay, nicely positioned in place, and you can see around here it's nicely positioned in there. So, gearbox cover back on. And just watch you don't lose your bolts. Sometimes you need to just sort of manoeuvre it past these little leads. There we go. Position it down. There we go. If you wiggle it, you'll see that it should then sit fine in place. Things to look for, just on this bottom edge down here, make sure we haven't got any gaps around here. Plate, you can see there, a bit of a gap there, so that's not sitting right. There we go, that's better. So we're going to position that there, and what we'll do is when we bolt this down, these gaps here should just disappear, but you know, a bit of common sense, just needs to be positioned so there's no gaps, otherwise you'll get dirt in there and it'll fill up your air filter much quicker. So I'm going to do that now, and then we'll finish up. Okay, so final bit, we're going to tighten this all back up. So don't forget, back right, back left, front right, that's where we need to do our bolts. All 7mm. I've put an extended bar on for the back ones. I use a wrench anyway, it makes life a bit easier. Again, hand tighten clockwise. Change the oil filter and air filter. We've also removed the oil. We need to fill it with new oil. So here's our filler tube. So if we just remove the cap. Right, this is the 2 litre Duratec, I believe it is. 2 litre Ford Kuga, 2014 model, if that helps you. We need 5.5 litres of Castrol Magnatec 530 A5 fully synthetic oil for diesel engines. Okay, It's 5 litre oil sump, and it's a ½ litre for the oil filter, so 5.5 litres in total. Make sure you get the A5. As you can see by what I'm showing you there, it's for stop start wear. This isn't a stop start engine. Some other vehicles may have that, this one doesn't. However, these diesels do run relatively cold compared to some older diesels, and at the end of the day, you know, put decent oil in your engine and it'll protect the engine, and it'll last a lot longer. You put the cheap crap in, you're going to have a crap engine. So Castrol Magnetic 530 A5, and then we're going to fill it in there. Teaching you suck eggs a bit, but you want a nice filler tube. Make sure it's clean, because if you have any crap in this, you're about to put it in your engine, which is not a good thing. Okay, so I've now put 5 litres of the oil into the engine. Notice I'm still up on the ramps, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just have a look through the dipstick. You can see there, we're just on the bottom edge of the dipstick, so needs a bit more oil, but as we are up on the ramps and the car is tilting back slightly in an elevated position, I'm not going to fill any more or put any more oil into it. What we'll do is we'll get it off the ramps first, then we'll recheck it, start the engine, let it pump around a little bit, and then we'll check it again. Filter changed. Just going to take this down off the ramps now. I'm going to just show you something as well, because we need to reset this in a moment when we're ready. I'll start the ignition. Have an oil change required. I'll show you how to reset that in just a moment. Just going to get this off the ramps first. Okay, final part. I've filled the oil. It's now 5.5 litres. Check the dipstick. We're at the top marker. So the last bit, we're going to put our engine cover back on. So reverse of taking it off, just going to position it over the top and give it a little press down all the way around, and then that'll sit nice and firm. And that is it. That is how to service a 2014 Mark II 2 litre Ford Kuga. A couple of other things to just consider when servicing your vehicle. I don't need to do it on this one, but it's worth just, you know, checking it and changing it if required. Coolant. You can see the minimum line there and the maximum. Just, you know, make sure the coolant's a nice sort of bright colour, or, you know, if it's a blue coolant, obviously just make sure it looks nice and clean. Check it's at the right level. Check it looks decent. If it's been in there for too long, change it. Same with the brake fluid up the top here. Again, you know, I don't need to do it on this one because of the low mileage on it, and it's also been done before. But just consider your brake fluid and maybe changing that. Changing the brake fluid might be a job better done at a garage, just because of the tools. Sometimes they have better tools to get the brake fluid through the system and bled properly. You don't want to be going around with brakes that aren't bled properly, because you won't stop. And that's largely it. Good luck. Hope the video has been helpful to you, and happy motoring. Now I'm going to show you how to reset the oil change warning. So if you've got a stop start push button like I have, you want to push the ignition on, and then you want to press and hold both the throttle and the accelerator at the same time, and then we get this oil service reset in progress. You have to hold this for about 20 seconds. Okay, so that's now said it's complete, and hopefully that should clear in a second. Right, so we can then take our feet off the brake and the throttle. If I turn that off, okay, so that message is now cleared. So if I turn the ignition off again, I'm just going to turn the ignition back on, and we'll make sure that we don't get that warning message. There we go. No warning message.